Okay, this is the given front and right side view of the wedge in your technical drawing text by Gasecki. You want to make sure that you accurately reconstruct this. Most of this is fairly straightforward, but I wanted to point out a couple of things to make sure that you didn't make any assumptions when you're drawing these views, because obviously you can't properly construct the top view if your front and right side view aren't correct. So um, these, I'll start off here. These two lines, even though you're not given a dimension about where they are in the elevation, they are at the same elevation as this point, like where this line and this line intersect. Okay, so um, and this point is actually actually found by a given dimension in the book between this line and this line. Okay, so when you locate this point through that given dimension, you draw this line vertically down, and then you don't know where to stop it though, because you're not given a dimension between here and here. All right. Well, that's not a problem either. Um, you are given a dimension between this line and this line. Okay. So basically, what that means is you know where to end this line and this line, right? Okay. So since you know where to end this line and this line, you draw a line vertically down until it reaches the edge of the circle. And then at that intersection point, you draw a line back toward the front view. Okay, now that line, as you can tell, um, or this line, I should say, is at the same elevation as this point. Okay, so you don't have to make any assumptions as far as your elevation of your lines. All the dimensions that you need to accurately reproduce the front and right side view are given. I just basically didn't want you to assume that this line and this line were at the same elevation. Okay, a couple of things I want to talk about. Now this is a this part is basically created from a cylinder. Okay, now cylinder is a little more strings to work with than an object with straight vertical and horizontal faces, and I want to point out a couple of obvious things, but you need to keep it in your mind as you go through this exercise. So, since this is a cylinder, even though you can't really tell it from this view, the most narrow part or the thinnest part of the cylinder is this line. Okay, and as you move up toward the center line, the object gets thicker and thicker and thicker until it gets to the center line. And then once you continue going up, the object starts getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner until eventually this part of the cylinder is just as thin as this part, which is just basically one point. Okay, so keep that in mind as you go through. And the reason I bring that up is because if when we're constructing our missing top view, because the object gets thicker and thicker and thicker as you go up, I would expect in our top view that the portion of the object that represents this part of the front view is going to be wider than this part, because this line is closer to the center line than this line is. Okay, and that may be a little hard to visualize at first, but we'll go through it and we'll construct the missing top view. So the first thing I want to do is to draw some construction lines, and I think I will just start off with maybe drawing the basically the boundaries of the top view, and make sure you have your quadrant snap turned on, since this is a cylindrical type object with circles. It'll come in handy if you I would just turn it on in my running object snaps, and your quadrant is right here, and that picks the basically the 90-degree marks on the the circles. Okay, so I want to draw a 45-degree miter line. Make sure you have your polar tracking turned on to accurately do this. It has to be exactly 45 degrees, not even a little bit on each side of 45 degrees, or you end up with improperly transferred dimensions. Okay, so now I can kind of see where the boundaries of my missing top view will be. It'll be inside this rectangle. Okay, I'm going to just do a little trimming to clean mine up so it's easier to keep an eye on. And I think also I'm going to go in and change the color of my construction layer. I just want to change that to a light gray, I think, and I think that'll work just as well as what I've been using. Maybe, yeah, I think that's a little better than that bright yellow. Okay, so I want to start off with what I think I know. Okay, so what I just mentioned was this line and or this horizontal plane and that horizontal plane. Now, if you look at the right side view, you can tell that this line is at the same elevation as this line. Okay, and you can tell that plane goes across the entire object. This line is at the same elevation as this line, and you can also tell that that plane goes uninterrupted across the entire object. So let me, just from these points, I'll draw a couple lines straight up, and I'm going to start off with the one that I said would be the widest, okay, in the top view. Alright, I'll project those lines over. Okay. And I think what I'll do is just go to my visible layer, and then I will outline that surface in my top view. So I will do the same for the next part up. Go back to my construction layer, and I'll go from these endpoints up to the minor line. Trim off what I don't need, TR enter. Okay, and then project those lines over. Always make sure you're using your correct snaps so you can accurately draw the part. Go back to my visible layer. Okay, so now we have our the back portion of the object. Now, what do you think? You think this part will be wider in the top view than this part? Well, let's just see. The distance from remember what I was talking about as far as this being a cylindrical object, and this is just out of curiosity more than anything. This distance is I need to turn on my perpendicular snap as well. This distance is 0.68. This distance is 0.70. So that tells me, since we're dealing with the center cylinder, this line is further away from the center line than this object is. So this surface, even though it will be shaped similarly, will actually be more narrow than the one that we just drew. Now let's see if that's correct. So I'm going to go back to the construction layer, and you can actually see it in the right side view as well. But I just want to kind of mentally bring you through what's going on in this construction. Always be careful when you're projecting your lines that you don't accidentally snap to something that you don't mean. That's why I extend my lines a lot further than I need to, so I don't accidentally snap on this endpoint, for example. Since these two lines are so close together, that could definitely happen. And then from this point, I'll draw a line straight up and back to my visible layer, and I'll go from here to here to here and to here. Okay. And another thing that you might want to do is this is a good thing, is make an old construction layer, and it really doesn't matter what color it is, because I'm going to just turn it off, and as I use the different construction lines, I can just move them to the old construction layer, and since that layer is turned off, it keeps them in the drawing in case I need to reference them again, but it gets them out of the way so my drawing doesn't get cluttered. So I can do the same thing with these. I'm going to keep the outside boundaries. I do like keeping an eye on that. Okay, so now my object is coming to life here. And of course, this part is abbreviated because of this cut surface, but